The Surface Studio is a most impressive desktop that has already shaken up the all-in-one PC landscape. However, its exorbitant price makes it an extravagant dream for everyone but artists and illustrators. Since Microsoft got into the hardware world in earnest, every Surface device has been about breaking molds. Surface has made a name for itself as a tablet that can truly replace your laptop and the ultimate laptop, each taking a unique flip on the two-in-one format. Now, Microsoft has set its sights on revolutionizing the desktop space with the Surface Studio, a 28-inch all-in-one designed to be the ultimate creative workstation. On one hand, it one-ups the long-established with an even sleeker design by moving the computing parts from behind the screen to the base. On the other, putting digital pen to screen has never felt more natural, thanks to the massive 28-inch touchscreen that effortlessly folds down into a virtual drafting table orientation. Although it doesn't feature the latest Intel Core i7 processor and packs last year's Nvidia GTX 980M graphics, it's more capable than any current iMac and puts many other all-in-one PCs in their place. The only thing that gives us pause with this most impressive desktop is the stratospheric price you'll pay to own it, its value 100% dependent upon how you use it. Microsoft Surface devices are usually aimed to be premium, but the Surface Studio is on another level with a starting price of $2,999 or AU $4,699, about £2,390. Every version of this AIO comes with a 28-inch 4500 x 3000 display.But. At this level, you'll be getting an Intel Core i5 processor with 8 GB of RAM, 1 TB hard drive with an integrated 64 GB SSD, and an Nvidia GTX 965 2 GB GDDR5 VRAM graphics. Ratcheting up to $3,499 or AU $5,499, about £2,790, takes you to the next SKU, doubling the memory and upgrading it to the same Intel Core i7 CPU as our review configuration. Finally, our own review configuration costs an astronomical $4,199 or AU $6,599, about £3,350, for another 2 times increase in RAM and a much larger 2 TB HDD with an integrated 128 GB SSD. Graphics also gets a significant upgrade with Nvidia GTX 980M, 4 GB GDDR5 VRAM. To say the least, this is a very pricey desktop indeed. Even if you were to max out the configuration of it, wouldn't even come close at $3,299 or £2,999, about AU $4,320. However, a top-of-the-line iMac with 5K Retina display priced at $3,999 £3,779, AU $6,319. Doesn't seem like much of a bargain considering the stronger specs on Microsoft's desktop offering. Now that the is here, it's only a matter of time before the Surface Studio gets a refresh as well. It might not be until next year, given that the original Surface Studio was released last year, whereas the first Surface Book came out a year prior, but, suffice to say, the Surface Studio is due for refinements. That's due in part to the fact that the Surface Studio as we know it uses Intel's 6th generation Skylake Core i5 and i7 processors in addition to Nvidia GTX 900 series mobile graphics. Meanwhile, you can get it with Intel 8th generation silicon and a Series 10 Nvidia GPU, indicating that the Surface Studio has some catching up to do. Still, if you're hanging on to your existing Surface Studio, there are numerous improvements in tow. You can now, for instance, the Fall Creators Update to take advantage of improved security, privacy and accessibility as well as an assortment of enhanced 3D modeling and gaming-centric functionality. From the moment we pulled the Surface Studio out of its box, we knew we were in love. There isn't any shortage of impressive desktops, what with Apple's ever-thinning iMacs to the 6-speaker sound on Dell's XPS 27 AIO. However, nothing beats the simplicity and elegance of the Surface Studio.By moving all the components to the basement, so to speak. The display is just a touchscreen with remarkably thin bezels. Without that rear bump, the profile of the screen is a mere 12.5 mm, making it slimmer than virtually any dedicated monitor. There's also no fat chin underneath the screen to flaunt a Windows logo. Actually, it's refreshing to see no branding anywhere except for a mirrored logo on the back. The Surface Studio is a modern and minimalistic desktop designed with straight edges and a simple gray-on-chrome aesthetic. The base of the desktop takes this one step farther by simply being a nearly featureless, Shen box. The noticeable element is a subtle line that wraps around the perimeter of the studio's foundation to provide cooling for the mobile computing parts contained within. Microsoft arguably takes this clean aesthetic a bit too far, as all the USB 3.0 ports as well as the memory card reader are located on the rear. The lack of USB-C and Thunderbolt also means you won't be able to take advantage of the fastest external drives. Although we've already set our piece on the separately, we absolutely adore the completely wireless and clutter-free setup when paired with the Surface Studio. The two come included along with a Surface Pen in the box. We've seen some truly impressive displays, such as the 5K iMac but the Surface Studio takes the cake. Although 4500 x 3000 pixels isn't the sharpest resolution in the world, it is sharper than a 4K display without being overzealous. This combination of screen resolution and size with the Studio's 3:2 aspect also means you can snap 4 separate programs to each corner and still have a legible view of each app. Frankly, the size and resolution feel just right. Microsoft's nearly perfect sense of color gamut and contrast carries over to its latest Pixel Sense display. Additionally, there are more color profiles to choose from, including sRGB, Vivid, and DCI-P3 to make it a truly production-grade display. Holding up this glorious display is the Surface Studio's other winning feature, the zero-gravity hinge. This catchy named mechanism absorbs all the torque required to move the 13-pound display, making it easy to switch from a standard all-in-one PC to a digital drawing surface. When lowered, the Studio's touchscreen display holds itself at the same angle of pitch as a standard drafting table. And of course, you can also adjust the display at different levels of tilt and without worrying about it moving under the weight of your hands as you work. As with the drawing and writing on the Studio feel like it's almost too good to be true. Surface pen strokes translate perfectly into lines of digital ink. Unlike other styluses that feel like they're gliding on glass or cutting themselves into the touchscreen, Microsoft has refined its hardware so that it offers just the right amount of resistance. Aside from the Surface Pen experience we've all come to know and love, the introduction of this desktop also came with a new Surface dial. This curious, mini puck-shaped accessory is actually a Bluetooth-connected module you can use to change settings on the Studio and in specific Windows apps. It's intuitive, and, within minutes of picking it up, you'll realize it both spins and acts as a physical button. Pushing in the dial brings up a radial menu of options like volume and screen brightness controls as well as zooming and scrolling. Hit it again, and you can get to tweaking whichever option you've selected. But that's just the surface, of what this dial can do. In most apps, you can use the dial as a zoom slider, but for drawing and painting apps, you can more easily switch between tools, change brush sizes, and undo your last stroke with a simple twist. It might sound functionally simple, but having that quick access to physical controls without having to stop drawing is huge if you want to stay absorbed in your process. And of course, this also means only digital artists and other creative professionals are going to get the most out of this accessory. One other small gripe we have with the Surface Dial is it doesn't stay in place when you have it on the studio's screen. Instead, it slowly slides down the touchscreen, even if it's lowered all the way. Unfortunately, that's really the extent of everything the dial does for now. Both Fresh Paint and Paint Sketch can't switch between colors with the Surface Dial, and they're the poster children for Microsoft's digital art programs. There's also virtually no integration with Adobe's suite for media production apps, including Photoshop, Illustrator, Lightroom, and Premiere. Microsoft has told us support is coming soon, and it is working hard with Adobe to make things happen, just as their partnership led to Photoshop getting a touch-based interface. After installing the Creators Update preview, officially available, we were able to squeeze a bit more functionality out of the Surface Dial. The latest version of adds customizable dial controls and Paint3D as another app for the artistically adept. Beyond that, though, we have yet to discover more uses for the Surface Dial. For now, we'd say there's a lot of potential for the Surface Dial, but you would be better off saving your $99, £149, AU $149, than buying this extra peripheral. You might balk at the graphics chip from last year and the less than current Skylake processor on its spec sheet, but the Surface Studio keeps up with other all-in-one machines. Thanks to its high-end GPU, this desktop pulls well ahead of the XPS 27 AIO and iMac with 5K Retina screen with a Firestrike score that's nearly 4 times higher. Unfortunately, the studio's processing power doesn't prove to be impressive, and its more CPU-intensive benchmark scores lag behind. Benchmarks aside, this desktop knows how to put in work. Microsoft's AIO never buckled, even as we loaded up dozens of tabs on 2 web browsers, a separate Google Music streaming app, Slack, Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator all at the same time. Even Lightroom, which usually grinds gaming laptops to a halt, ran smoothly on the studio as we processed images for this review. We also played a fair number of Overwatch matches at the Surface Studio's full screen resolution with ultra settings without issue. During our entire time with the device, we didn't encounter any graphical performance issues that would have required the latest Nvidia graphics. The most impressive thing about the Surface Studio's performance is how quickly everything loaded on it. Rather than being equipped with a traditional SSD or hard drive, Microsoft used Intel's rapid storage technology to intrinsically tie a 2 TB spinning drive to 128 GB of flash memory. In this setup, the hard drive does all the heavy lifting of storing all your files. Meanwhile, a smaller segment of your data is compartmentalized onto the SSD if it has been associated with a commonly used program or service. Although this system doesn't allow you to directly access the faster storage solution, we never felt like we had to, as files loaded seamlessly and quickly the whole time. There's no doubt the Surface Studio is impressive, or that you'll probably love it at first sight as well. However, that eye-watering price is something to be heavily considered before you make the dive. If you're just looking for an all-in-one PC for your everyday computing or office work, you'll be much better served by an iMac, Dell XPS 17 AIO or videographers and photographers would arguably be better served by a similar system with higher-end specs, a dedicated desktop, or building their own PC or two for the price of a standard Surface Studio. However, for artists and especially illustrators, the Surface Studio introduces a new wrinkle into a world primarily dominated by Wacom tablets. Not only does the Surface Studio allow you to sketch and inspect your picture with one device, the visual quality of the Pixel Sense display is far greater than that of Wacom's Cintiq display or For those reasons, we'll reiterate that the Surface Studio would best serve artists and illustrators. It's without a doubt one of the finest premium computing devices ever produced, but there's no reason regular users should purchase this unless they're in the market for the highest-end iMac and want more options. Or bragging rights. Gabe Carey has also contributed to this review.